Well, as you can see, we went and got some propane. Went to that place that gives us a military discount, so it's a lot cheaper. I think we get that for $12 a tank, whereas I think it's $15 or $16 a tank normally. So that puts us at a comparable price to gasoline, which makes running this generator off propane cost effective. This is the dual fuel generator. It runs off propane or gasoline. And this one we use primarily just for running the well pump here. The old one just won't pull the well pump anymore. It's just gotten too old. And it's not the engine that won't do it, it's the inverter itself. The inverter just has gotten heated up and cooled off too many times in its life. But it still serves a great purpose, charging the batteries on cloudy days like this. Everybody wants to know, what are you going to do when SHTF happens? Because obviously that's the only reason we live off grid. Can't convince people that's not why we live off grid, but you always got to put that caveat in there. Well, and they'd say if it's an SHTF, we can do this or that and this and that. So yeah, we run propane for our water heater, generator, and cooking. But we don't have to. I've said that many times. It's a convenience, which is going to sound hypocritical when I talk about what I'm going to talk about today. But we do have some things that are just convenient. Life would become a lot more complicated if I didn't have that generator to run the well. On a cloudy day like this, there's just no way I could run the well. I would have to wait until it's sunny. Here's the thing about our solar system, our setup. We make 1,000 watts an hour. The well pump takes about 800. Now, in order to make 1,000 watts, we have to have the sun high up in the sky. So at noontime, we're making 1,000 watts in the middle of July or something like that. But any other time of the year or time of the day, we don't make 1,000 watts. So you can't calculate your solar panels as 1,000 watts an hour because you don't make 1,000 watts an hour. That's just peak. That's what you get at peak. So in order to run the well, it would have to be at noon on a sunny day. And so that just takes a lot more planning and effort and thinking it through. I mean, for example, when we go grocery shopping in the summertime and we get our meat, we try to go early in the morning on a sunny day. So that means we're looking for the weather map and making sure that it's going to be a sunny day on Sunday when we go shopping. And we get back home early so we can put the meat in the freezer, turn the freezer all the way up so the freezer can freeze that meat throughout the day while the sun is up in the sky. That way at night, it doesn't run off the batteries all night. People will argue all the time that there are ways to do things that they've seen on other YouTube channels. And so they come to me and they have this expectation that I should do it the same way. I've watched these channels. I know exactly what they do, how they do it, and why they do it. So the other day in a video where I specifically said, you probably shouldn't call people stupid or critique the way people do things until you have a full understanding of what you're doing. And I went through a few scenarios, and one of the scenarios was the water tank. I love the way my water tank is set up. It works great, and it doesn't freeze through the winter. And I said that in the video. And I said, but every time I mention the water tank, somebody will say, oh, but you better bury that tank, otherwise it might freeze. It's never froze. The way we have it, the tank has never froze. Now the pump might freeze and different things, the RV pump. No one suggested that I do anything with the water tank this time because I specifically called it out in the video that if you're going to criticize it, don't, because it just doesn't make sense why I would want to go out through all that expense of burying the tank when what I'm doing is working. But they can't resist. They got to have something to tell you that you're doing wrong, that you could do better. There's just a ton of reasons why I don't want to do things differently. And I've tried to explain them all. But the guy watches like 3 videos and they have a solution to how to make life better. Well, I didn't come out here to make life better. I came out to make it simplistic. People seem to miss that point. I've talked about work and how stressful it is, and I don't want all that stress. So I want to live a simplistic life. So I'm going to explain some things. So this guy says, why don't you put an on and off valve, it's basically a float valve, inside the tank. So when it gets to a certain level, your well pump kicks on automatically, fills the tank up, off your solar panels, because right now I do it off the generator. And so I try to explain that at nighttime, batteries would not be able to power it. We don't have enough batteries. I want to run that freezer. The only reason we have electricity off the solar panels is for the freezer. Everything else is secondary, everything. We want that freezer. For the well pump, we run off the generator. If we didn't have the generator, I might think of some other solution, but the generator was only $500, which is about half the price of the solar panels. People will argue, well, you'll have to replace that generator more frequently than you're going to have to replace the solar panels. A propane generator should last a very, very, very long time because we don't use it for anything else. Now, in order to do what anybody is suggesting with the setup I have, would cost tens of thousands of dollars. At least I'm pretty sure that's what it would cost. It would cost a lot. I would have to have a ton of batteries and probably have to go out and get lithium ion batteries, which are about $1,000 a piece. And then you can't charge them during the winter. So there's all kinds of things. Everything has a problem. But with what I have, I don't have any problems. Is it convenient? No, it may not be as convenient as people would like. So he references a YouTuber. I saw a YouTuber do it. I just figured you could do it too. So I was trying to recall in my head the YouTubers that I know have a well and try to live off-grid somewhat. And the two that popped in my head right off the bat both use generators. So I thought, no, it couldn't be those two that he was thinking about. And so today I was thinking about it again so I could make this video, and it occurred to me who it could be. He is a huge YouTuber, massively big, makes a lot of money, and he has no qualms explaining that he does make a lot of money on YouTube. He's worked very hard at it, worked a long time at it, and as a result he has made quite a bit of money at it. He does run his well off a solar panel. Now, I don't know all the details to that. I know he bought a system that is designed specifically to run the well. The first thing you have to have is lots of money. It's an expensive system. Mine just doesn't cost that much. It's in the budget that I can afford, which I talk about that a lot. I'd rather not have to work for an employer and just make some YouTube videos and make a little bit of money off YouTube than going to work for an employer, busting my hump all the time so I can have all the fancy equipment. Now, the other thing is if you're going to run this kind of pump, it would be a DC pump. Mine's an AC pump. And a DC pump, you have to replace the brushes on it frequently. I don't know how frequently, but frequently. So that means you got to pull the pump up out of the well, replace the brushes, and put them back down. So my thinking is this big YouTuber probably doesn't even use his well pump full time. When I watched the video, and it was a while back and I didn't pay that much attention, it's not like I watch all his videos, he said in the case of an emergency, he'd still have running water. So it sounded to me like he was just using it as a backup system in case something happens. But the system I have is my primary system, and I use it all the time. So I would be replacing brushes probably much more frequently than he does. Now, the way I fill my system isn't that difficult. I go over there and start the generator, which quite honestly is the hardest thing to the whole process. That propane generator is just hard to pull when it's cold. I don't know why, it just is. And it smacks my hand and makes me feel like I'm gonna break my hand. That's the worst part about it. If I had that old generator and it still could run the well, I have no issues then. But I mean, I just don't understand how complicated this is, that we have to have the convenience of an automatic system. So then I take the hose and I put it in the hole in the tank. I set a timer, it fills it, and then I'm done. It's like using a garden hose, other than the generator. Again, that's the only thing different, but it's like using a garden hose to fill it up once a week, every 5 days. That's how complex this is. This is similar to when we got all this firewood. Carolyn has that manual log splitter. It's like a rowing machine a little bit. And she would split 2 or 3 logs every few hours, come back inside, go back outside and do it some more. And I would use the maul, and I just swing the maul. I do the same thing. Do a few logs, come inside, cool off, go back out. If I go outside, that's what I was kind of would do, is just if I went outside like to feed the chickens or anything, I'd just grab them all and split a log and go do whatever I was gonna do. And within a few weeks, we had everything split. So we didn't need a big expensive log splitter. And again, everybody always references other YouTubers. Well, these other YouTubers, they got a log splitter. You should go and get this and watch their videos. And they always put a link to the video. And I don't understand why I want to do that. Again, I would have to spend a bunch of money on a piece of equipment that I got to maintain. We haven't split any wood in 2 years, I think now. So that thing would just be sitting there. So I've spent all that money. Now, I might have to split some more wood here in the next 2, 3, 4 years, just to make sure I have enough for the rest of my life. But it's not, to me, not worth the investment. I mean, I come out here to save cost by burning wood, so I can go and buy a $2,000, $3,000 piece of equipment. Now, we did look into buying a electric log splitter, and I think it was a 10-ton log splitter. We looked into that. And if we get too old, we still might do something like that, but it's like $500. Wasn't that expensive? The reason we are doing this isn't for SHTF or anything. We're not out here for all the conveniences. Now, I said that, and I told you earlier, I'm going to sound hypocritical. I do have propane. And the propane makes things a little bit more simple for us, a little easier. But these are things within our budget, things that we can afford to do without having to go out and get a job, work for an employer, slaving. When we left our job, we were working 60, 80 hours a week sometimes. So in order from having to do that, we try to maintain our life within a budget. So if we wanted to buy a generator for $500, we can go and get a generator for $500 instead of going and getting a $10,000 solar panel setup. It's just not within our budget. People tell us, oh, you need an air conditioner because you're being abusive to your wife. Again, that would require a good $10,000 solar system setup to run an air conditioner. We live in a tiny house. The reason we live in a tiny house was it was something I could build without going out and getting a loan and having to have a job, because first thing they ask you when you have a loan is, well, how much money you make a year? Oh, I only make, and I would tell them, you can't have a loan for a house. Are you nuts? Go get a job. I don't want a job with an employer. This is my job. This is simplistic. And the thing I struggle with, people struggle with me not being able to have all the conveniences of a regular well or just turn the water on. Everything works just fine. People struggle with the idea that I want to minimize my life. People struggle with the idea I want to have a simplistic life. And I guess our definitions are just different. To me, coming out here, grabbing a water hose, starting a generator, putting it in a hole in a tank just isn't that complicated. I don't know if these people who are telling me these things haven't had the experience of killing yourselves for 20 years at a job. I don't know if they've been able to live off the government. I don't know if mom took care of them their entire lives. I don't know these things. But for some reason, they just don't want to have this mindset that you have to go out and split firewood or that you have to go out and grab a water hose. Their ideas aren't terrible until you actually put a dollar figure to it. And I don't understand how these people can come onto my channel, look at me and say, oh, he lives in a tiny house that costs $5,000 on a piece of property that costs $4,200. He's invested about $10,000 in his whole setup. So I'm going to suggest something to him that's going to cost another $10,000 just so he can get water into his house while he sits on his hind side not doing anything. I just don't agree with that philosophy, not anymore. So if you click this up next box, take you to a video where I was talking about getting into the mindset of living a minimalistic life. So I hope I can inspire you to learn how to live simplistically so you can live your dreams. Thanks for watching.